We lived down the road, and every Sunday morning, Russ Wagner would come over and put the wood in the fire. So we'd look up and see if there was smoke coming out of the chimney. Okay, Dad would say, boys, we have church today.
It was something that happened every Sunday. It was just such a core part of our growing up, the values and the sense of community that we learned while we were coming to church here.
The church was always the heart of the community. You didn't go to shows, you didn't go to concerts, you came to the church and socialized with your neighbors and had dinner parties and suppers, you know. And it's going to be hard to see it close.
I was baptized in the church, but my memories go back to when I was 3 to 4 or 5, before public school started. You got to know all the neighbors, where they sat. My Uncle John and Aunt Dorothy sat 2 seats in front of us, and my Uncle Ed and Aunt Eleanor sat ahead of us. My grandfather was hard of hearing, and he sat up just about the front to hear the minister. And ladies would have the fanciest hats you ever would know.
Easter was always a social event here at the church because you'd get a new Easter bonnet when you were young and come to church. If you attended Sunday school every Sunday for the year, you got a pin, and that was always special at the end of the year, getting your Sunday school pin and pinning it on your shirt. And yeah, it is a feeling of camaraderie and excitement to see friends and associate with them and chat with them.
I don't know whether Murray Wolfe told you this or not, but he said to me one time, he said, you know, we really never had a lot of bad apples at Mount Hope. And I have an expression that I really like, is that a child brought up in Sunday school is seldom brought up in court.
The biggest thing that you remember from the children in the Sunday school is the Christmas concerts, and that was a really big deal. The parents or the teachers would get together and make the costumes for the performance that we were putting on, and we would practice for weeks and have a really lengthy Christmas concert. And that was pretty important and lots of fun.
Well, all the ministers were pretty good, but Reverend Keith was pretty good, sitting down with the kids, and kids would all line up in the front seat and tell their stories, you know, about what they were doing, or to bless, you know, their puppy. And sometimes some of us mums would be sitting in the back wondering what were they going to say next. That you didn't want any secrets from home to come out. But we always had a good time.
So all of the fundraisers, we always did scalloped potatoes and ham in April, just after around Easter. The beef dinners were always held late September. So it was fun. The men all were back there washing dishes or serving tea or coffee. And I always made the pineapple sauce for the ham.
Canadian Food Grains was started at Mount Hope in 1999. Reverend Ken Russ, who was the minister at the time, was a great promoter of it, and Harvey Monkman, who had a lot of fields that we put crops in. A few years later, we joined with Dobbington and Centenary, and we had a service once a year, which we really enjoyed. Now we just give financially, but the government matches it 4-to-1, which makes quite a difference. And we were pleased to help the underprivileged people in the world.
After church was over, the men would congregate on the church steps to get all the news. And the women would congregate at the back of the church and have their social time. That's why those steps had to be so big, you see, the cement steps out on the porch. I just loved to go out there and lean up against the brick wall and catch up on the gossip of the week previous.
Our own wedding happened here in June 29th, 1968. And in the front of the church has always been a very large metal register. And I can remember as a child peering down in there and thinking, well, if you ever drop something down in there, it'd be gone forever. At the rehearsal party, the deal was, especially on behalf of the minister, was to find the mat that would sufficiently cover the register that should the rings drop, they would not disappear forever in the middle of the ceremony.
My grandmother, Sarah Peacock Wolf, she must have had a little grapevine growing over a chunk of rail fence in her garden, because she always preserved the grapes to juice. And that was the juice that was shared at communion in this church. And as a child, if you were lucky enough to be invited to go to Grandma's for lunch after communion, the jar had been opened, and so that there might be a little bit of leftover juice, grape juice, which was really a considerable treat.
I've always been very proud of that cemetery because Mount Hope Church have maintained it and looked after it, whereas most pioneer cemeteries have been turned over to the municipality, which this one will be now, but we always tried to keep it decent, and it's been very special to me because I've got my great-grandfather and my great-great-grandfather out there, and there were a multitude of monkmans around here back in the 1800s, and then there were Wolfs, and then there were Wagners, and now there's very few of that family name left, and there's a lot of family names that aren't left at all in the community. Nelson Howe was the chap who did the stonework, and we were proud of that. We had a big commemoration and put a time capsule in it.
The young people started in 1917 at this church, and it was called the Apworth League. In 53 and 54, it became circuit again with Centenary and Dobbington, and we had Ebenezer join later. And then it was called the YPU, which stood for Young People's Union. And we'd go to the different churches, and we'd have a devotional time, and then afterwards we'd have something social like broomball, skating, wiener roast, crokinole, cards, you name it, we did it. And it was a real fun thing. The group closed when it was called High C, and that was in 1968. And the group donated this baptismal font to the church with their funds that were left.
The friendship group started in February the 11th of 1975 with some couples getting together for social times. And then we tried to meet maybe 10 months of the year, and we did really well. There was a lot of different couples and friends that were involved. And sometimes we went on a sleigh ride, or we went bowling or curling or a pool party or a barbecue, and we had lots of fun. We finished in 2017 was maybe the last that we had.
Anybody that's had ties to the church, they're well qualified to go out in the world and do whatever they want. And truth and being right is a real asset to have. That gets you through all the narrow gaps in the world you have to go through, and you just kind of know what is expected of you.
I think the core as a meeting place, the core as the place where people have joined together in happy and sad communion changes. However, we are in a changing world, And so things change, and the way that people meet together now is maybe different than it has been over the centuries.
It was a rock for people like me anyway. I really benefited from having something to hang on to, you know. It was a place to worship God.